Hello, everyone. You're listening to Season 3, Episode 16 of the Attempt Adventure Podcast, a podcast all about travel, finding adventure every day, and seeking out ways to make your life a little more interesting. From Longmont, Colorado, I'm your host, James Barrett, joined as always by my co-host,
Michael DeRozier's in, I'm not in Bangkok.
No,
Michael DeRozier's in China Spring, Texas.
China Spring. Well, Michael, today we are going to be talking about international layovers, your recent adventure, my experiences.
Layovers are an unavoidable part of any travel, really, unless you're going directly, which the farther you are, the less likely that is. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yep. Before we start, some quick announcements. If you like the show, feel like donating, check out our Ko-fi page, kofi.com/attemptadventure. There you can donate a little bit if you want. Buy us a cup of coffee, buy us a bottle of water. Just show us your appreciation. We're never going to lock anything behind a paywall. We're never going to hide anything. Donating is just simply to show that you appreciate the show.
Yes.
Nothing else. Speaking of appreciating the show, if you like the show, tell your friends about us. Tell your mom. Moms love us.
Yeah. Tell the guy that paints your fence from time to time.
You might appreciate it.
And if it's your dad who does that, or your mom, maybe just tell them also. Again, tell your mom again the second time while she's painting your fence.
Yeah, just tell her until she listens. Call your congressperson. Tell them.
Yeah.
Tell them to give us a shout out on the House floor.
Hey, Ted Cruz, I want to tell you about this podcast you're absolutely going to hate.
Anyway, so yeah, just share us with your friends. You know, as for the new or adventurous stuff, we're skipping that this week.
Yes.
It's the holidays. We're all traveling, doing random stuff. It's tough. So we're going to give that a skip. If you don't like it, tell us.
Well, here's the thing, James. The penalty for not having done the challenge from the Wheel of Penalty is to give the other guy $50. You weren't able to do it, neither was I. I didn't do it on a technicality, but still, the point stands. We owe each other $50, and that's just dumb. So we're just going to get an extension.
Yeah, we're just extending it. We will do it. So please forgive us.
Here's the deal. I went to the Hagia Sofia. I was supposed to go to a new museum. That was a museum. I feel like that counts as adventurous. However, in 2020, it was it's been a museum since the 1930s when the Ottoman Empire fell and Turkey became a republic. It was a museum. 2020, they turned it back into a mosque. It's no longer considered to be a museum. So I didn't go to a museum. It's a technicality. I went to the Hagia Sophia.
However, it still technically doesn't count. Okay, we're strict on the rules here.
I'll go to a museum. James is going to go geocaching. It's fine. We will do it. It's fine. Just don't
tell Ted Cruz.
He's going to murder us and write a creepy note full of ciphers.
See, that's also bold because Ted Cruz definitely isn't smart enough to use ciphers. I, weirdly enough, had a game night for the first time in a long time pretty recently. Tried some new board games. Raccoon Tycoon.
Oh, that's a fun name. I love a rhyme.
It's basically capitalism, the board game. And you got to crush your opponents with the weight of supply and demand. It sounds super boring, but it's super fun. So did that, had game night. That was fun. Went to a new Vietnamese restaurant here. Delicious. So yeah, just kind of normal stuff, starting to feel out the area more, just that kind of thing. No like adventurous things. Been busy traveling for Thanksgiving and getting ready for Christmas. My birthday's coming up next week.
You doing anything fun?
I think we're going to make Christmas cookies. It's always fun. I love Christmas. I will say, I feel more Christmassy this year than I have in a long time. I feel it this year. I don't know what it is. Sometimes when Christmas rolls around, it's just kind of, I always enjoy Christmas, but there are definitely years where it's like, meh. Yeah. It's just another day kind of feeling. This year, I'm feeling very Christmassy. Been decorating, been listening to Christmas music. The Home Alone 1 soundtrack is arguably the best Christmas soundtrack because it's got a mix of everything. It's got like classical, it's got like newer stuff.
You were saying Christmas soundtrack or Christmas album? Do you consider that to be the best Christmas album in general or just the best Christmas soundtrack?
Soundtrack.
Okay.
Ooh, best Christmas album? If we're talking about just listening, I mean, yeah, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra is hard to beat. They're pretty great.
Yeah. Bare Naked for the Holidays. Bare Naked Ladies.
Pretty
really
good album. Pretty good. Any Kenny G Christmas album is going to be great. If you like some smooth jazz Christmas, love me some Kenny G.
Don't tell my wife that. She despises Kenny G.
She does. And I find it hilarious. I love Kenny G's Christmas.
Yeah.
Can't beat it. I'm typically not a lyrics guy, especially like new Christmas music. I'm not a big fan. There are obviously exceptions to this rule, but I'm much more like an instrumental Christmas music guy or like a hymns kind of Christmas guy.
Yeah. How do you feel about like Vince Guaraldi, like the Peanuts?
Sounds good. Anything kind of nostalgic for me. I have no interest in finding new Christmas music.
Modern Christmas music is very bombastic.
It's weird.
It's loud and
Yeah.
rambunctious.
No, I just want it to be kind of slow. And
Yeah.
I found a Spotify playlist that someone made, Home Alone full soundtrack. It's 10 hours of
Oh
Christmas
my
music.
gosh.
And I have not found a single one that didn't hit.
Nice.
I mean, I'm sure there are some in here because I feel like this person just started putting random stuff in here sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but like, and again, the Home Alone soundtrack, John Williams did the Home Alone soundtrack.
He can't miss.
He can't
Man's
miss.
never written a bad song.
Never. Anyway, just been getting ready for Christmas and stuff, so nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
It snowed recently, so the roads have been kind of messy. Yeah, what about you, Michael? You went to the Hagia Sophia.
Yeah, I had a one night layover in Istanbul. I arrived at 5 a.m. one day and I left at like 3 p.m. the next day. So I had more than 24 hours for my
Hmm.
layover. Stepped outside of the airplane and it was so cold, James.
Turkey's cold.
Everyone was bundled up like it was Chicago, but like I don't have cold weather clothes in Bangkok. All my cold weather clothes are here in America. So for that one day, everyone's wearing like their wool coats and their scarves and stuff like that. I'm the weirdo walking around in shorts and chacos because that's all I had. It's just a waste of luggage and it's a waste of space to have it in
Oh, I
Bangkok. So I
get it.
never wear a sweater. Never wear a sweater in Bangkok.
Even when it gets quote unquote cold in Bangkok, it's like 65 degrees.
I mean, okay, when I was hiking with Carl this year in January, at the
That's
top of the
different.
mountain, it was cold. It was close to freezing. And I had a hoodie there. But like, I'm not doing that every day, you know? Like,
No, and in Bangkok, what's the coldest it gets in Bangkok? Like 60s?
it's gotten down into the 50s before. It's been that occasionally, not for long, but it can
So
get
like,
down.
so yeah, I mean, to them, that's pretty chilly. And
Yes.
I get that.
Yes.
It's very chilly.
But still, it's not very often. A couple days a year, maybe. Most years, it
Mhm.
doesn't get that cold at all.
So yeah, so you've done some stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit? Do you have any pictures from your time in Turkey?
Sure do. I had a great time. I didn't have very long. So what I did was I signed up for a food tour with a company called Yummy Istanbul. It was kind of expensive. And so before I went on, I was like, is this going to really be worth my time to do this? But it was an all-day tour. 100% it was worth my time. It was one of the best travel experiences I have ever had. It was all day. The tour was called A Taste of Two Continents. So, of course,
Mhm.
we started on the European side. We went to several restaurants there, took the ferry across the Bosphorus. Then we went to the Asian side of Istanbul, ate at several restaurants there. The guide was fantastic, told us all about not only the food, but the culture and the history of Istanbul and of Turkey as a whole.
Yeah, as problematic as like the Turkish government is, everyone I know that's been to Turkey has loved it.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
nice.
As a tourist, apparently it's amazing. Did you get some Turkish coffee? The one where they do the in the sand?
Yes, yes, I did.
That's so cool. It's so good.
Yeah. But yeah, we started out with this full Turkish breakfast that consisted of, cheese and olives and bread and, meats and sausages and all of that, Turkish tea and a paste made of hazelnuts and a chunk of buffalo cream soaked in honey. And that was just our breakfast. That was our first course. We walked through the old market, the old spice market. Then we had our second breakfast, which was like this spicy lamb soup, which was awesome. Real fatty, very rich, a little bit spicy. So that's the first one. And then you can look at that second post of crossing the Bosphorus and you can see how everyone else is dressed. And imagine me just wearing sandals. I felt like I was the only person. I never saw another person wearing shorts, not even
Oh
tourists or
no,
anyone. But they got snow just a couple days before I was there. So I was really just, not prepared, but
it's beautiful though.
the ferry across was great. So then we arrived on the Asian side. We started with something called an Iskander kebab, which is a plate full of, you've got the pita bread on the bottom, you've got the kebab meat and some yogurt, and it's topped with browned butter, and you just eat it all together. So good.
Boy,
It
that looks so good.
was excellent. Then we went to a pickle shop, James. Apparently in Turkey, pickles are really popular, and they had pickled everything: pickled plums, pickled carrots. The juice here is red because it was pickled with red carrots to make the juice. Pickled pine cones, like everything. And so you eat the stuff out of it, then you just drink the juice, and it's supposed to be really good. Our guide said it was a great hangover cure. He was a fantastic guide. Could not recommend him more. In fact, I want to shout him out. He was the Kebab Guide. You can find him on Instagram. Had the best time. I had a great time in Turkey. I did go to Hagia Sofia at the end. They're about to close it pretty soon for some massive renovation. They realized that someone said it was going to collapse by 2050 if they didn't do massive work on it. I mean, the thing was built in the 300s. So I was like, I almost didn't have time. I thought I would just go some other time, but I was like, when am I going to be back in Istanbul? So I went to go see it early in the morning before my flight. I got in line. It opens at 9 for visitors. I was the first person there. And so when they opened the gates, I sprinted inside because I just wanted to have a look at it before anyone else got there.
Yeah.
And I did. I was able to take a picture of the inside without anyone else there. And of course, instantly 100 people, were behind me filing in. But I was able to get that one picture, that one look of it without anyone else.
That's such a great picture.
And it was a really special feeling. So I felt very, very lucky to get to see it. I only got to stay there for about half an hour, unfortunately, because I had to get to my flight. But it was magnificent. It was bigger than I thought it would be, even.
I do like how, even though they've basically said, hey, it's a mosque again, because it's been a cathedral, it's been a mosque, it's been all sort of, because it was built as a cathedral.
It was built as an Orthodox cathedral, as like the cathedral of the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire. It briefly became a Catholic cathedral after the Fourth Crusade, when the Byzantine Empire became the Latin Empire, which only lasted like 20 years, and it became a Byzantine cathedral again until the Ottomans invaded. Then it became a mosque. Then after the fall of the Ottoman Empire, with the rise of the Turkish Republic, it became a museum and a UNESCO site. And in 2020, it became a mosque again. So it has a very long and storied history.
Yeah, but I do like that even though you can still go in, you can still do all that because, a lot of these things, and it's fully within people's rights to do so, is when there's a mosque, like you can't go in. I do like the cats. I have heard a thing, I could be wrong, where cats are like in Turkish culture, like really lucky. And so like there's just cats everywhere.
Animals in general, dogs and cats were just walking all over the place. People love them. Absolutely love them. Everyone was feeding dogs and cats.
You got this Hagia Sofia cat, which, I mean, that's the best place you could be.
It was so funny because I saw this cat and the cat was being real sweet and had its kitten, and I was kind of, petting them. And I saw these two guards walk up and I thought, oh no, they're going to like shoot the cat out or something like that. They come up and they kneel down. They're like, oh, kind of like, playing with the cats. And they were just coming to see the cats. It was very funny.
That's awesome. Those are great pictures.
When the Ottomans took over, when it became a mosque, they plastered over all of the icons, these ancient icons that dated back, like they were like 1,000 years old at the time, right? From the year like 300 or 500 AD. When it was restored into a museum, that was uncovered and these icons were revealed, these beautiful mosaics in gold. In Islam, it is forbidden to have a depiction of a holy figure's face, right? You can't have a portrait of Muhammad. You can't have a portrait of Jesus, who's considered a holy figure, or angels considered holy figures. But for art purposes, which I appreciate, they didn't cover them up again. They've left them. So even though that's technically considered haram in Islam, right, for the purpose of preserving history, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's the only mosque in the world that has something like that, but it's got to be one of the very few because it's technically not supposed to be allowed, but they've left it. So there's the very big famous icon of Jesus on the back wall, very famous icon of the angels up on the ceiling surrounding the dome, which is really unusual for a mosque.
I would very much like to go to Turkey.
Yeah, it was cool. It was
I miss traveling.
Very, very short layover, but I definitely made the most of it.
Would you plan a trip back through Istanbul with a longer layover just to experience it more?
Absolutely. In fact, I will go back there. I'm going to have a shorter layover, but it's still one night on the way back. It'll be less time. I think I arrive in the afternoon and I leave the next afternoon. So I'll have like an evening and maybe half a morning. And I'm going to still try to see as much as I can. I would love to go back for longer. I'd love to take a week or something. I mean, even just in Istanbul, much less the whole country. My brother studied in Ankara, so he'd never even been to Istanbul. But Ankara looks incredible. Cappadocia, of course, would be amazing. I mean, it's a giant country. There's so much to see, even outside of. But at Istanbul, you could spend a week or two just there, quite honestly.
Interesting.
What's nice is that it made the travel home a lot better because instead of flying for like 24 hours, I traveled for the first flight was 11 hours. The second flight was 13 hours. It broke them up.
I mean, it also just helps you because I'm sure you feel better getting here after having slept.
Oh, I felt so much better.
And it helps the jet lag. And I knew you were probably interested in some stuff that was there, but would you have gone out of your way to like take a special trip to Turkey?
I mean, it's just not convenient. for me. I mean, when
Hmm.
I'm traveling, I'm going places nearby just because we don't have that much
Yeah.
time usually. I'm able to travel a lot, but not for long. I'm able to travel for a couple of
Yeah.
days at a time. So it's hard to get somewhere like Turkey. It's a lot easier to go to, Malaysia or
Right.
Japan or Singapore or somewhere in Asia.
But having been there, I
Mhm.
feel like you would make a special time
Oh,
to
I
go
would.
back.
I would. In fact, in the future, if I can do a layover like this again, I'll absolutely do it again. Or maybe even book my tickets with a couple days in between.
So here's a question, and we may not even get to our topic today, and that's okay. Of all the places you've had layovers, which has been a bunch, if you had to pick one, if you could only fly through one place,
Mhm.
what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question because
Hmm.
right now I'm saying Istanbul, but that's probably recency bias because I've been
Right.
through Tokyo so many times and I love it. I'd love to see more of Japan besides just Tokyo. Right now I'm saying Istanbul because I didn't get enough time there. Probably not
Hmm.
Dubai. Once was enough, I think, for Dubai.
Yeah.
I didn't get to leave the airport in Taiwan, so I couldn't tell you. I'm sure it would be great. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah. Do you think that it might be because, and obviously there's recency bias, you were just there and you're like, oh, that was great. I want to go back. Do you think that another part of it might be is just because, yes, every place you've been, Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, those kind of places are very different from Thailand. But I feel like Turkey is very different.
Yeah, and that's part of it as well,
Hmm.
for sure. I mean, and also the reason I did have a great time when I was in Dubai earlier this year for my layover,
Hmm.
because it was something I'd not done before. Very different culture, different architecture, extremely different food. And I got to say, I mean, I love Mediterranean food, right? Turkish food is well known as an amazing cuisine, right?
It looked amazing. I want all of it.
I think that's part of it too. It was very different. And Istanbul is very far west. It feels like an old European city, and it is. I
Hmm.
mean, Istanbul is half of it's literally is in Europe, half of it's literally in Asia. It's a city that straddles two geographical and cultural continents, really. And it was great. I haven't been to Europe since 2011. It's been a long time since I've been in Europe. I never get to travel in that part of the world. If I'm spending that much money for a flight ticket, I'm coming back home to see my family. That's the thing,
Right.
you know. Well, James, how about you? I know you spent that time at Pudong, and I know you would have left
Yeah.
if you could have,
Yeah.
couldn't.
Well,
Um,
I was able to leave Pudong the second time, but it was nighttime. I've never had a layover be enough time to do
mm,
anything.
okay,
The only time I would have had was in Shanghai, and and that was the first time I had ever left the United States, really.
yeah.
I'd been to Canada, and so
Suddenly wandering around China out
yeah,
of
it doesn't
would
seem,
be a little bit
yeah,
intimidating. I think, yeah,
yeah, and I didn't have a place to put my bags. I would have been dragging around a suitcase. Like
yeah.
it just no good for that. The second time I had it, when I got a hotel in Shanghai
Hmm.
and I went there. And so the only experience I have of China is the drive from the airport to the hotel
Hmm.
and then the hotel restaurant. So
Okay,
it's not like I don't really have much experience with it. I've had very short layovers in
yeah.
places, a few hours. I've been to like the Tokyo airport, but even then, I only had like an hour layover and was like rushed through. I've been to the airport in Taiwan, but so I've never had that. I've always wanted to,
Hmm.
and I feel like, but again, kind of like you, is I was able to travel, but not for very long.
Yeah.
And so my goal was always to just get to Thailand as quickly as possible. And then, like, once we were in Thailand, we do all sorts of stuff, but getting there was my main priority. And like, there's a few, I would love to have had more time in Tokyo where I can
Hmm.
go around and see what's up, or Taiwan. China, since I was there for less than
48 hours, I think.
48 hours, as I was able to go in. Like, there was one guy that I had like talked with like a lot on the flight. Unfortunately, he had a short layover, so otherwise he had lived in Shanghai, and if he was like, if I had longer, we would go into the city and do all sorts of things. But I've never had any kind of other experience. Really, Thailand is really the only other country besides the US that I've spent any time in. I don't know why I said really, just that is
Well,
truth.
let's talk about this then.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a layover, if you're not able to get out of the airport, how can you spend a layover in comfort? How can you have a better layover if you've got a couple
Ooh,
hours, like you did in Shanghai? You were stuck there for a few hours.
17 hours.
You were stuck there for a while, but say you have a layover of like 5 hours. That's not time to leave the airport, get into
No,
town, come back. What do you do, James? How do you make it more comfortable?
I will say one of my mistakes was not truly understanding like the country.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because when I got to China, it was a struggle to contact people because China is very strict with their internet access. And you and I talked through Facebook. Facebook is disbanded in China. My phone at the time, now I can call and text anybody anywhere and it works just fine. But then for some reason, I couldn't call you on your cell phone. I couldn't text
Yeah.
you on your cell phone. And so I just kind of had to, I don't know, I just kept trying and eventually Facebook worked.
No, you broke through the firewall.
I don't know what happened. I was like, ooh, hacker mode. So eventually I was able to contact my mom
Mhm.
on the
Who
phone,
and she called me.
and
Yeah.
she contacted you.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't do anything. I had 17 hours. I'd already been traveling for over 24.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I had to leave security and they wouldn't let me back in until 4 hours before my flight. Had I not had to leave security, I would have been in there with all the other shops, with all the other stuff. It would have been a much better experience. I had to go outside security and just sort of wait. I would sit down somewhere and then hundreds of people would come in and then I'd move,
Find a better place.
find a
Yeah.
better place. And eventually I went downstairs and there was an area that was under construction under there, but there were still benches, but people didn't want to be down there because it was kind of loud. And so I ended up just getting on a bench and I read a lot. There was a little convenience store upstairs where, luckily enough, logos look the same. The logo for Coca-Cola, because this was before really the whole use your camera and translate things. And in China, at least where I was, the language barrier was very, very obvious where I was. In Shanghai, I'm sure if I'd gone into Shanghai, I wouldn't have had as big an issue because
In
Shanghai
the
is a very big
city,
international
sure.
city,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But where I was, you know, I know zero Chinese. I'm talking zero. I mean, the people there, the people that worked at like the little stores and stuff, knew enough ish, but typically I was just hand them what I wanted.
Mhm.
They'd ring it up. I'd give them the money and we'd be on our way. So luckily things like Coca-Cola and Fanta and all those and chips and things like that.
They make it easy so that if you're anywhere, you know what these are Lays,
Yes.
right?
Yes. These are Lay's. This is Coca-Cola. This is a Red Bull,
Yeah.
which Chinese Red Bull, which is the original Red
It's
Bull.
like the Thai. Well, it's not Chinese, James. It's Thai. I gotta
Is it
tell you,
Thai?
it's Thai.
Sorry, that's my bad.
Yeah, no,
I
it's
think
a
it's like the
tonic.
same thing though.
It
It's like a
is.
ton. It's good though.
It's very
It's
strong.
pretty good. Yeah, it's because I got it because I was like, I'm exhausted. Red
Yeah.
Bull. I know this logo, Red Bull. And it was in the gold can. I was not prepared at all for this 17-hour layover. And so going forward, I definitely would have brought some sort of neck pillow. And in general, I would have brought a way to communicate a little better.
Right, and that's easier now with
Yes, it
translation
is.
apps.
Yes. And the thing is, because like Google Translate was available,
Mhm. But
but I
Google's
can't
not
get on
available.
Google
Yeah, exactly.
because I could have just done that and like typed in something and
Mhm.
been good to go.
Yeah.
But it was my first experience where I would just be sitting there and then like a bunch of like army guys would walk by with machine guns. And I'm like, I'm in a weird place.
Right.
Not weird. That's rude to say. Very
Different.
different from what I'm
Different.
used to.
Sure.
Like I think at one point there was like a Jeep driving through the airport. That was weird. And I was like, all right, cool, go nuts. That was the first time because in even in Bangkok, in Thailand in general, I never felt out of place, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
It was different because in China, I definitely felt like I was like, oh, I'm
An outsider.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as for comfort, I think for me the biggest thing would just be to know what you're getting into going in.
Manage your expectations, park and
Yes.
camp.
Yes. Just find a good spot. Don't let people push you around, because the same guy tried to sell me the same cell phone 5 times. And like just don't let people push you around because there's always going to be those people. There's always going to be people trying to take advantage of other people. Not to make this place sound scary. Research what you're going into, manage your expectations.
Yeah.
And in general, Michael, I don't know if you'll agree with me on this or not. I find the act of traveling to be uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. Like physically getting there.
Yeah, the result is always worth it.
Flying especially is awful.
Flying is terrible. Flying used to be fun. I dread even going to the airport now.
Yeah. You got to keep your eye on it. Like I'm going somewhere awesome. I'm on my way somewhere. I'm on my way to see my family. I'm on the way to Thailand. I'm going somewhere cool, right?
Yeah, and so I think there are definitely ways to do it. Bring something, bring a neck pillow, bring something you can really relax on. Bring a book, download a bunch of movies.
Oh yeah, audiobooks, podcasts. This
Yes.
podcast after you tell your mom twice while she's painting your face.
Yeah. I think for me, because again, I'll say it, I've said it a bunch of times already in this 10 minutes,
Mhm.
but I didn't know what to expect. Like I had heard, oh, you can't get on you can't get on the internet in China. You can't do all this other stuff. But I I spent most of my time researching how not to act for Thailand.
Right, not China, not your
I didn't
layover
do any
destination.
research for China, even though I spent 24 plus 17, a lot of hours in China,
41.
like almost 2 days in China overall.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't know. I should have looked up, like, downloaded WhatsApp or something, because I'm pretty sure that's fine in China. All these things that I should have done to make my life easier when I got there. Should have downloaded a translation app. All these things that I couldn't do.
And I'm sure that information is available. It's just like you would never think about it if you haven't
Mm-hmm.
traveled before. And like I wouldn't have thought about it, So let this be a good lesson for people listening
Yeah.
to the show.
The first country I went to, technically outside of the US, other than Canada,
Mm-hmm.
was technically China, which is daunting
Yeah.
as if as a first country. So, like, I would say most Americans, and this, it could be completely wrong, if it's not a country like Mexico or Canada, they go to Europe.
Yeah.
That's typically their first experience of outside the US, if
Mm-hmm.
you're not culturally belonging to another country. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right. Yes.
And so I had no idea what to expect. I had never traveled for that long. I had never traveled solo, really. I'd never been to Asia. So all these things coming together, it definitely made every other time going to Thailand, it's like nothing. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing China.
No, I'd love
You know
to.
what I
I'd
mean?
love to go to China. I would love to see it.
But it was a fairly, at least the Shanghai Pudong airport for me, and this could have just been inexperience, was fairly unfriendly to travelers.
You just got to do your research and know what to expect, and then you'd have a better experience. I'm sure now, if
Mm-hmm.
you were to go back through there, you'd have a much
Oh
better
yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah. I'm more confident. I would have gone into the city. I would have done everything. But traveling can be pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're not used to it, especially if you're in an unfamiliar place by yourself. And now I don't think that would bother me. In fact, I would argue that for me, going somewhere like Thailand, after I did the first time, the second time I went was nothing. No issue. Went through Japan, which Japan is a very friendly airport. Once I got through that first time, nothing was like nerve wracking anymore. So yeah, I think for me, more than anything, as for like physical comfort, is mental comfort
Mm-hmm.
going into things, because I will say that it's almost going to be impossible, unless you just get really lucky, to be physically comfortable the whole time. You're going to be on an uncomfortable seat, you're going to be sitting on the floor, you're going to be all these other things, but being mentally prepared and mentally comfortable is the most important part. I'm sure you have had this experience, and I know I have, where you build up an expectation of something, especially when it comes to traveling or doing this sort of thing, and you get there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. And I've learned to not make expectations of places because of that. If I don't do that, then I almost always find something positive.
But I mean, a layover is part of that as well. If you're expecting to be a little bit uncomfortable, you could just find a
Yes.
spot, make it, make the most of it, read a book.
Yeah, read a book, use it as time to decompress, be grateful you're not on a plane. I did try some great things at the little convenience store.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always love a good convenience store. Any country, I don't care. Any state, any country, convenience stores, amazing. I don't look back on it negatively
No,
now.
no.
At the time, I was like, this is the worst
Well, that's
thing.
type two fun, isn't it? A different type of
Oh
type two
yeah,
fun, but it is.
going back for a long time, I was like, that was good. I don't really care about going back to China. And I'm like, that's not fair. That's not fair to China. But if I was going to go back through China, I wouldn't go through Shanghai. I think the biggest thing is that how you and I travel is not super touristy.
Don't
We do
try to
not
be.
travel as tourists. We travel as people trying to experience a place. And with the exception of doing things like food tours, if you have a short layover, getting a tour like that,
It was
doing a tourist
great.
thing, do it.
Yeah, in a short time, you can do so much more with a tour than you'd ever be able to do on your
Mm-hmm.
own. If I was wandering around Istanbul, I would have seen some cool stuff, maybe gone to a museum, got something to eat, would have
Yeah.
had a great time. I had a much better time doing this. It was totally worth it. And that's just not how I normally travel.
I fear that sometimes we sound a little, because that can sound very elitist. You know what I
Mm,
mean? It sounds
preachy,
very,
and
oh, I don't experience it like a tourist.
I'm a
And I'm
better
just like, yeah,
traveler
but
than you. Yeah, we're
yeah,
not
that's
like that. We don't
stupid.
care what you do. Yeah,
Experience a place how you want to experience
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And a guided tour is going to be great.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And there are certain places like Istanbul where, again, I don't know. I assume it's fairly European, especially Istanbul. So I'm
Mhm.
sure English is common, because a language barrier can be very tough.
It can be.
I will argue that a language barrier isn't as tough as I think people think it will be. Because, yeah, you may not be able to verbally communicate, but body language is pretty much universal.
Gets you a long way, really.
Yeah, it will get you a long way. A wave, a smile, everything. You're all good. For me, yeah, it was nerve wracking. It was the first time I'd ever been outside of home, really. I was sitting in an airport in China, can't talk to anybody, can't get on my phone, can't do anything. And it's really easy to slip into a like, oh, is someone here who is someone's going to try and like scam me, or someone's going to do this or this or this. But people are just people. The people sitting in that airport are waiting on the same thing I am, which is to get through security and get where they're going.
No, I think that's important. I think that's important to realize, and it just will make any experience, much less a layover, just so much better.
Mm-hmm. That was a long way of me saying that just be mentally prepared.
Sure. Well, that's two very different international layover experiences from both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to propose that we do something a little bit different for Adventures in the News today, James.
Okay.
It should be your turn to share an adventure, but I found an article that I thought would be more relevant, and I'm going to share it with you here. This is an article about airlines that offer free stopovers when you're traveling. So let's talk about this, because this could be some good practical advice for people. First is TAP Air Portugal, the only airline to offer free stopovers in 2 cities. It allows travelers to stay in either Porto or Lisbon for up to 10 days. Now, you do have to pay for your hotel, but you're able to book a ticket that stops you there without any extra charge. Now, Turkish Airlines, here's what I did. If you're connecting in Istanbul for at least 24 hours, you can qualify for their stopover in Istanbul program. Passengers flying in economy class get to stay 1 night in a 4-star hotel free of charge.
Which that's pretty cool, too.
Business class gets 2 nights at 5-star hotels. Iberia has a stopover in Madrid for 24 hours. You also get 20% off tickets to different places, free public transportation card valid for 2 days that you can pick up at the airport. Iceland Air has a stopover program that includes tours. So you can do the Golden Circle tour for a huge discount, a Reykjavik walking tour, Blue Lagoon tour, also at huge discounts while you're staying there. Qatar Airways lets you stay up to 4 days in Doha with bundled rates for 4-star hotels starting at $14 per night. And you can upgrade to a 5-star hotel for $77 per night, which is still awesome for a 5-star hotel. Etihad lets you stay in Abu Dhabi. You also get 40% off of 4 or 5-star hotels for up to 4 nights. So there's a lot of great things you can do. I know that Seoul has the stopover program where you can get a free tour. It's maybe not an overnight stopover, but you can get a free tour sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism. So I guess that's a really short article. That's only a few. I'm sure a lot of airlines do it, but they don't usually publicize that they offer these things. So my only advice would be, whenever you're flying, just type in search, Google whatever your airline is, Turkish Airlines stopover program, or Japan Airlines stopover program, or whatever it is, and see if it's an offer. See if there's something you can do with that.
Yeah. So for you had to email and get a voucher.
Right.
I will say, of all these, the best deals are probably, I'm going to say, Turkish Airlines, because it's a free hotel, in Qatar with the $14 a night hotels, or 5 for 77, 5 stars for $77.
If I was there for like 1 night,
I'm doing this. I'm doing the 5-star hotel. That's cool. See, I haven't looked into these. This is a cool site. Oh.
So as usual, we'll put a link to that in the show notes so you guys can have a look at that as well.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. Definitely check that out. Well, that's awesome. I think this ended up being a very, very good episode. All right. Well, Michael, do you have anything else today?
I don't. I really enjoyed that conversation. That was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, everybody, if you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you're feeling generous, give us a review. 5 stars is always preferable, but we value honesty more than flattery.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Speak for yourself, James.
You can find more Attempt Adventure content on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all Attempt Adventure. If you want to contact us, the best way to do that is go to attemptadventure.com, click the Contact Us button, and send us your message directly.
Yeah.
Other than that, you can email us hello@attemptadventure.com. And again, just send us, comes right to us, and we'll get back to you. All right, everybody. Again, thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the talk today. And until next time,
keep adventuring.